What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterosn here with some Broncos trade ideas, some trade targets, some trade candidates. 5 trades the Broncos could make before training camp opens up late July, early August, as they wrapped up minicamp on Wednesday. So they're off, school's over, right? They're off into the summer break for the next 6 weeks. And so it's always fun to talk about trades. I think I should preface this with saying, do I think a trade is likely for all these situations? No. These are just 5 trades that have been tossed around this offseason, so we'll kind of refresh everyone's memory. Plus, trading is always just a fun thing to do, is it not? Now, the Broncos don't have a ton of trade ammunition. They only have 5 picks in 2023. That's the price of doing business when you go get Russell Wilson. You lose your first, you lose your second. Plus, if you remember last year, that Trinity Benson, remember Trinity Benson? Poor went out for him. Kind of forgot about him. He was awesome for 2 preseasons. Anywho, that was a 7th-round pick for 2023. Well, last year it didn't seem like a big deal, but here we are. Jonas Griffith, the trade with the 49ers, that was a 2023 pick. So only have 5 picks. They don't have a ton to give up, so I've got 5 ideas to have the Broncos getting some players or maybe shipping some players out. Trade idea number 1 has been a very popular trade throughout Broncos trade rumors over the last couple months. It is Andre Dillard, the tackle, coming over from Philly for a 4th-round pick, which personally I don't think would be enough to get him. Now, if you don't know Andre Dillard's story so far, he was a 22nd overall pick for the Eagles back in 2019, and he's not a bad player. That's not why he's on the trading block, which Philadelphia has been trying to do for quite some time. My guess is they haven't gotten an offer they liked, so they are content to hold on to him. But the reason why Andre Dillard is being shopped right now after being a first-round pick just a few years ago is they've got a guy named Jordan Mailata, who is awesome. He was a late pick for the Eagles, and he has quickly proven to be one of the best tackles in football, and Lane Johnson on the left tackle side. So there's just not a spot for Dillard to crack the depth chart in Philly. He could definitely crack the depth chart, I would think, in Denver, though. The issue, though, is he's a left tackle. You got Garrett Bowles at your left tackle spot. He's not moving to right tackle. Now, you've seen you've seen Dillard struggle a little bit at right tackle, which is where Billy Turner is right now. When you compare the 2 tackles head-to-head, PFF-wise, they're pretty similar. You got to give the edge to Andre Dillard, who, granted, has played fewer snaps in 2021, but Billy Turner is coming off a knee injury, which ultimately led to his demise in Green Bay, if you want to sound, like Shakespeare. But it's a fun idea in theory to trade for Andre Dillard. I think it's pretty unlikely. If the Eagles really wanted to just get him out of the building, he would have been gone by now. My guess is Howie Johnson, out in Philadelphia, he hasn't gotten an offer that's blown him away. Until he gets one, he's very happy to have a very good swing tackle who is relatively cheap, still on his rookie deal, and can step in if an injury happens. He's not dying to trade Andre Dillard away. Now, before we get to some more trade ideas, if you are ready for real football to start, padded practices, no more 7-on-7s where Russell Wilson can't get sacked and can just run around all day until he finds an open receiver. Like today's video, we've got a like challenge going on here at Chat Sports across all of our NFL channels. So help the Broncos Breakdown get to the top by hitting that thumbs up icon. Trade idea number 2. I'm shipping off Ronald Darby to the Arizona Cardinals. Again, a trade that has been a trade candidate for the Broncos that's popped up from time to time. And Arizona needs help in the secondary, and you're not trading him within the division or within the conference. So it kind of starts to make a little sense. And I've got Denver getting a 4th-round pick for him. Hard to really stab at what Ronald Darby's value is worth. Now, I will say this. The Broncos, once again, have plenty of DBs. We have heard the praises of Michael Ojemudia this offseason. Damari Mathis, the 4th-round pick out of Pitt, has looked good through OTAs and minicamp so far, but that's all it is. OTAs and minicamp. So maybe George Paton feels a little pressure to get some picks back. I mean, look what Darby did last season for the Broncos. Coming over from Philadelphia in free agency, I thought he played pretty well. I thought he was a good corner. Was he a corner you could not live without? No, not necessarily. And so that's why I wonder, could George Paton go, ooh, I've only got 5 picks in 2023. Can I recoup some of those? You know what I'm saying? I like Ojemudia and I like Damari Mathis, so maybe I trade away Ronald Darby because the difference between Darby and Ojemudia is not that great, right? Maybe that's something George is thinking about, but the pick you could get for Darby would be worth it because you only have 5 bullets in the chamber for next year's draft. So I'll open up to you guys. Would you trade Ronald Darby? T for trade or P for pass? I'm not saying Ronald Darby should be traded because he's not playing well. I just wonder if Ojemudia and Damari Mathis look so good in training camp, maybe all of a sudden Paton goes, you know what? Darby's still better than those guys, but is he so much better that I wouldn't take a pick for him? I don't know, Jim. All right. Speaking of just offseason and whatnot, if you are looking for a channel that's going to keep you updated throughout the entire offseason, and I mean the offseason, because we have hit the point now where things are going to start drying up a little bit, but we're not going to take our foot off the gas here at the channel. Subscribe today. That way you never miss a daily Broncos video. Trade idea number 3, one fan-sided suggested a couple weeks ago that we talked about on the channel. It's KJ Hamler going to Chicago for a 5th-round pick. 2nd-round pick a few years ago, and you just kind of wonder, okay, 5th-round pick, is he worth that? Hard to say. I think he's worth more than a 5th-rounder, but you also are getting a receiver who's coming off a torn ACL last year. Maybe that's not something, maybe he's not going to field you or yield you that much. Listen, to boil it down here, I would not punt on KJ Hamler, right? I know you haven't seen what you've been hoping to see out of a 2nd-round pick back in 2020, but you just got Russell Wilson. And we know he is awesome with finding a vertical receiver like KJ Hamler. So why go get Russ if you're just going to trade away what everyone has been talking up could be his new Tyler Lockett here in Denver? I get it. Again, we go back to the argument of you only have 5 picks, and KJ Hamler is kind of being boxed out a little bit between Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick. Maybe they want to try to just get something for the guy who's not going to get many targets. I don't really see the logic in that all the way through. I can kind of entertain it, but not really. So I would not give up on KJ Hamler. But here's my question for you guys. Do you think KJ Hamler will have a breakout year in 2022? Y for yes or N for no. Trade idea number 4 on the show. Mike Purcell off to Pittsburgh for a 6th-round pick. So the previous regime gave Purcell that contract extension. Well, we saw what George Paton really thinks of Purcell after going out and signing DJ Jones in free agency. Last season for the Broncos, a bit of a downish year, 1 tackle for loss, no sacks, 2 QB hits. It just didn't look maybe like the player he was in 2020, and that's why ultimately you brought in a new nose tackle like DJ Jones. Now, there's the argument of, hey, Matthew, depth. You know, what if DJ Jones gets hurt? To have Mike Purcell, who was a starter last year, be a backup this year would be an awesome guy to come off the bench. And there's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, it's just picks, right? I would rather get the picks personally than have good depth at the position. And I say that because this has kind of been, you know, the dead horse I'm beating here, which is you only have 5 picks next year. Why don't you try to stockpile a little more instead of the argument of getting extra depth pieces and holding on to players who, let's face it, may not be playing a ton in 2022 because you got DJ Jones. You drafted EU out of Iowa State. There's a lot of other, McTelvin Agim, right? There's some other guys that could step up and take that role if you really wanted some extra depth pieces instead of just hoarding on for some other players and hoarding on the depth, okay? We got some more trades coming your way in just a second. But the NBA draft is just a couple of days away at this point. Less than 10 days to go. So if you're looking for a spot that's going to get you free NBA draft coverage, and I mean tip-top shape draft coverage, live streaming the entire draft, because we all know when Woj and Shams put the pick out, it is light years ahead of where the ESPN broadcast is. So make sure you watch our draft coverage here at Chat Sports for the 2022 NBA draft. Fifth and final trade idea, I've got Deion Jones going to Denver, along with a 7th-round pick for a 4th and a 5th. A little complicated here because Deion Jones, one, it sounds like he's done in Atlanta, all right? He has not been a participant this entire offseason as he rehabs from a shoulder surgery that was not really disclosed until recently by the Atlanta front office. Listen, Jones has been a very good linebacker the last couple of seasons for the Falcons. He has been probably him and A.J. Terrell have been the only two good players on the entire Falcons defense. You should go look up, by the way, how many sacks the Falcons had last year. It's a very sad and depressing low number. So maybe George Paton looks at his linebacker room and realizes it's really not shaping up maybe what I would hope it would be. Alex Singleton, Josie Jewell, can they get the job done? Yes. But you also learned last year how thin it could be after injuries. And credit to Vic Fangio for losing all 4 starting linebackers from Von Miller to A.J. Johnson to Josie Jewell to Bradley Chubb and duct taping a good defense, honestly, this second half of the season. I have very low expectations for the inside linebackers. And so does George Paton. That's obvious, right? That's why he did not invest much in that position. Josie Jewell is the most expensive man in that room on a 2-year, $11 million contract. Clearly, George Paton is sending a message of running backs and linebackers aren't what they used to be. This is not the 90s anymore. You can easily replace a running back, and you do not have to spend top dollar on a linebacker. With that all being said, maybe Deion Jones could be the last piece of the puzzle on this defense to really make it elite and compete in the AFC. Because you know Russell Wilson will take care of the offense. But I look around the rest of this defense, you haven't seen Bradley Chubb be healthy or look like himself since 2018. Randy Gregory has never played a full season. So you're kind of short in that department. Josie Jewell's coming off an injury last season. Alex Singleton, he was a special teams guy for the Eagles. They're hoping he can make the next step here. Maybe Jonas Griffith can be a hidden gem, but I don't want to bank on that necessarily. So that's where I kind of go along the lines of, could Deion Jones fit in nicely for this team? What was your favorite trade we talked about on the show? Was it Andre Dillard coming over to Denver? Was it Ronald Darby going off to Arizona? KJ Hamler to Chicago? Mike Purcell to Pittsburgh? Or Deion Jones to Denver? Let me know down below in the comment section which trade was your favorite. For me, the Deion Jones trade is tempting. I know the linebacker position is not what it used to be, but he's still one of the best in the NFL. Okay? Roquan Smith, Darius Leonard, 2 of the best inside linebackers in football. Jones, not far off from them. So if George Paton is watching his defense play, going into training camp and realizing we are one playmaker away from, in my opinion, having an elite defense led by Simmons, Surtain, a combination of Chubb and Gregory, and then Deion Jones calling the shots in the middle of the field, that would be a little interesting and a little tough to pass on if he could be gotten for cheap. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much to everyone who made us a part of your day. Hope you guys have a good Thursday and on into the weekend. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you later with more Broncos news and rumors.